me while we prepare to live stream this meeting on YouTube. And at the same time that we're doing technical stuff, we are not professional broadcasters, but we are realizing the importance of figuring out our broadcasting game. And the, not
Excuse
only,
me while we prepare to live stream this meeting on YouTube.
I have to mute the YouTube. YouTube is now live. And the way you know it is that you are suddenly hearing two of yourself. But anyway, I'll go back to my Zoom and light this candle. Light this candle on the 19th of July, which is Nicaraguan Independence Day, the day of the triumph of the Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua. And it's been a long story since then, and there are different interpretations of what's going on there, and we will be free to dialogue that one. But I just want to pay tribute to that beautiful moment when 40 years of Somocista US-backed repression ended, and the Sandinista revolution was born in a flame of optimism and passion. And just want to pay tribute to those years of incredible inspiration there. I want to also light this candle for the memory of John Lewis. What a beautiful, sweet, gentle giant that we've lost. John Lewis presente is what I say this morning to all of you present here. This is our moment to remember him, especially in the darkness of this time, this moment when federal agents, unmarked, heavily armed, are grabbing protesters off the street in Portland, evoking to me the time of the mid-'80s when death squads supported and backed by the United States were doing the same in the streets of San Salvador. It feels like exactly the same thing, and I urge you all, which I did this morning, to call your representatives and your senators and tell them that this is the beginning of fascism if we don't do something about it and speak out about it right now, right in this moment, right in this very moment. That's what I want to say about a few things at the beginning of this, our first summer gathering. We're so glad to welcome all of you here. There's 23 of you from a lot of different places, and we want to tell you about just a quick update from the board of directors. I'm not but a sort of ex officio member of the board, but I want to let you know that the building is still here. It hasn't gone away. We are a building, but more than a building, we are a community, and we are a widespread dispersed community that can be together here right now. The restaurant on the first floor that is a major part of our sustenance has been closed for 3 months, but it has reopened. And it's called Clover, and they are both our tenant, and the landlord-tenant relationship is not an easy one, but I want to speak on their behalf that they have reopened in a very good, safe way. They are takeout only. They are also, I will say for them, a very environmentally responsible restaurant. They're called Clover. There's about a dozen of them in Boston, and they serve only non-meat items. They don't call themselves vegetarian because they sort of advertise that 75% of their customers are non-vegetarian, but they offer vegetarian, or they offer non-meat food to say we need to eat less meat. Whatever our persuasion is, it is for the good of the planet for us to put less meat on our table and more vegetable options. And they're very much into the recycling part of a process. Anyway, Clover is reopened, and you order their food by app only, and you pick up their food right at the door. They don't have an indoor restaurant function, although they have on our sidewalk tables and chairs where you can dine. So that's a little bit of update on the building. The other update is that we have a dead boiler, and we are in high speed mode to get quotes on a replacement for our heating regimen. And hopefully, if we can swing it, it'll be a replacement also of our air conditioning regimen, which is spread out all over the building. So the building is very active, even though it's closed to the public. We have a lot going on. We also are welcoming 2 new tenants. One is Encuentro Cinco, which gave up their space in Hamilton Place. Wonderful, long time meeting space for radical activism, is now part of us and has an office in our building. The other is called Healthcare Now. They do work towards single payer healthcare, and they will have an office in this building as well. So we're doing all kinds of things here, and we're not quiet this summer. It's a beehive of activity, although not of welcoming the public. It's so weird that our whole purpose is to bring people together, and we are having to say, stay away. That's not an easy thing to do, but we are, I hope, rising to that challenge as best we can. So we continue with the program, and Barry, are you there? Barry, I want to unmute you. Charlie, can you help me unmute Barry, and Barry, unmute yourself?
Hello.
Barry, I just want to recognize you. I had mentioned this before, that we are hoping to also, as part of our church meetings, have a quick, maybe COVID update from somebody in our community or outside of our community. And knowing that you are a semi-retired researcher and very knowledgeable from Harvard Medical School, very knowledgeable on things, I just wanted to get a word from you, 3 or 4 minutes worth, whatever you had to say. If you so desire, you can also decline.
Well, I'll say maybe 5 words. Go to stopthespread.news. Stopthespread.news. That is the website that that I, with 3 helpers, have developed, and it's live. It's got some work to do, but it's live.
Okay. Stopthespread.news, folks.
Yeah, Stop the Spread is all one word, .news.
Write that down, and Charlie, if you could put that on our chat page.
And if you just do hashtag stopthespread.news, you'll get to our site.
Stop the spread.
Yeah, stopthespread.news.
Very good. Thank you, Barry.
Yep.
We will check that out. And one last word before we hear from ASLIANI again with her musical message, is that we are taking this very seriously at Community Church. We have a commercial building that has one tenant that has 10 employees. They have been working remotely. but we had a meeting where we are taking very seriously all of our protocols for reopening this building, and it involves every possible precaution around staying clean and hand sanitizer, and everybody pitching in on that, and our elevator protocols and our stairwell protocols, and cleaning and disinfecting and sanitizing. And we are taking it very seriously, every person who comes into this building. And we have a station right at the entrance of the building. So stopthespread.news will tell you more about what each one of us can do to help stop the spread. And it's everybody's responsibility and obligation to pay attention to this. And none of this, it's my constitutional right not to do anything. This is all of us right now, right here. ASLIANI, let's unmute you. Can I do it? I think only Charlie can. There, oops,
She's muted herself, so she has to unmute herself.
ASLIANI, if you could unmute yourself, and you have the floor for your musical message. Yes, we hear you.
Okay, sweet. Okay, this song is called Take Your Corona Back. I'm advocating a three-part solution. Practice good hygiene is key. Absolutely, everything you're saying, we got to do all that. Strengthen the immune is key. And the third part that I'm bringing in is bring in a new tune. Here's my song, Take Your Corona Back. Going out with the prayer for the healing of everyone who's infected by the coronavirus. To those who cross over, may their spirits be at rest. And for all those who are grieving, I pray. And for those on the front lines offering care and for healing of us all in these times. Be our master, peace, because yes, we need relief from our worried minds down to our feet. They've been having our consciousness in cages, the terror paradigm, they've been pushing it for ages, but you're a masterpiece, you're the master of your peace. No choice in the matter, we got to go deep and find what it is that we gotta release and lay it all down at our creator's feet. Regardless of our concept of him and her, what matters is we stay communing on the regular, keep our head up and give thanks for every blessing and go to him and her first with all of the stress and practice good hygiene and strengthen the immune and maybe think about bringing in a new tune. Tomorrow's not promised, but no, it never was. It's the same choice as it's always been, fear or love. Turn off the TV, don't feed that maggot brain. Everything will be provided if we just switch lanes. He's right here, he's got us by the right hand. She loves us at a level beyond what we can understand. We can change the vibe, let the judgment slide, give acceptance to whatever's inside. Maybe we got some things to say, motherfucker, God, show us how in a loving way. It's the coronavirus, so take your corona back, stand up, breathe deep and get your prayer on track for the healing of everything alive. Baby, yes, yes, it's time. It's the coronavirus, so take your corona back, stand up, breathe deep and get your prayer on track for the healing of everything alive. Yes, it's time. Yes, it's time. Yes. Sending that out with the message of healing, everything that needs healing in our world, all the trauma, all the violence, all the walls within us and between us. Let's do the work we got to do to take it all down. Yep. Healing of the human family. We got this. So be it. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. And I have a music video for that one out on my YouTube. I just, my first self-produced thing. It's partly shot in Joshua Tree, partly back in Albuquerque. And yeah, if you my website, it'll eventually you'll find it there. But Take Your Corona Back Deep Note is actually the thing to look up. Take Your Corona Back Deep Note if you want to check the music video. Thanks for letting me share it.
Thank you, ASLIANI. I don't know if you have another one for us.
Yeah.
This is
yes,
your
I do.
message
Okay.
This is your moment, and we'd love to hear another one. That was
You got it right
beautiful.
here.
And tell us the website is ASLIANI.
ASLIANI.com.
ASLIANI, that's spelled A, S as in Sam, L-I-A-N-I. Yes?
Correct. Yes. Yes. It's an Arabic word and a Hebrew word together. ASLIANI. Yes. And if you go to my website and you click on the link to get you to my Patreon page, that's actually where I have my most updated information and a link to Take Your Corona Back and a link to a really important song I have about racial healing that I performed live for you guys a few years ago called Let's Have It Out. So if you go to my website, from there, go to my Patreon and just see what I'm doing right now. And that's the best way to check out my work. Okay.
Okay. So let's have otra.
Otra. So this one is called Rainbows. Okay. This one is called Rainbows. And there's the chorus. Your guys are going to hear. There's a part where I say the word rainbows a whole bunch. So audience participation, should you choose in that moment, visualize yourself in a rainbow, send rainbows out to everyone in your life who or anyone in your life who is hurting and in pain. There's that verse in Genesis that says, I have affixed the rainbow in the cloud as an everlasting reminder of our covenant. But the interpretation that I like best is, I have fixed the rainbow in the cloud as an everlasting reminder of my love for you. So rainbows, divine love, let's send them out with this song. Rainbows, here it goes. Here we are on the verge. Can't give up. Here we are on the verge. Can't give up, gotta work. Play our part in the overhaul to restore beauty and evolve. We took it on from the other side. Ancestors are on our side. As above, so below. Sickness, a planet, sickness, a soul, I give it away. And then I take it back. In the water, creatures dwell. Scary, scary, they attack. As my learnings I stack. Oh, daddy, yours is mine to unpack. Through it all, though, I fight to keep it clean. On a mission to regain my throne. Yes, for I am queen. Just cause something's bad, that doesn't always make it wrong. Learn the lessons, make amends, dust off and get on. Daughter of earth, reclaiming her worth, digging down, down deep in the dirt of the curse to find my gemstones and put them in my crown. Grown up and driving my own ship now. Gotta maintain on the goddess plane. Excise the poison from my brain. Patterns, rearrange. They will never mind, I do contain rainbows. Rainbows, 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 rainbows. Gotta maintain on the goddess plane. Excise the poison from my brain. Befriend those demons in my terrain. They just scared, I do proclaim rainbows. Rainbows, 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 rainbows. Catch a tots. In the gas chambers, I reclaim my goddess power. How to get through that final hour. How to live in the heart. And break out of the clutches of the fear bind. Divine mother, open the portal of self-compassion for this woman child known to some as Catherine. Lead me to true forgiveness of myself and into the palace of my inner wealth. Oh yes, ma'am, I'm taking my stand, throwing up my hands and making demands. I plant my feet on the mother and I look them in the eye and let what must with the end I die. Oh yes, I am coming round the curve, bearing here they are, the fruits of my work. But it's only worth doing if it's helping set us free. I want to get to the bottom of what's between you and me. Gotta maintain on the goddess plane. Excise the poison from my brain. Patterns, rearrange. They would never mind, I do contain rainbows. 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 Gotta maintain on the goddess plane. Excise the poison from my brain. Befriend those demons in my terrain. They're just scared, I do proclaim rainbows. 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 Catch your tots. Gotta maintain. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see you, Fran. I see you, Dean. I see you, Barry. Yes, thank you, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
ASLIANI,
Hey,
thank you. Thank you so much.
thank
I
you for letting me
wanted to
share.
ask you if you'd tell us about the backdrop painting a little bit.
Yes. So this is a Native teenager. Here, let me get you a little closer. So I don't even know what tribe she's from. She came into my life. It was like my first couple of weeks in this area, and I was completely bugged out. This was back in September. And my paths crossed with this artist in the area named Dario Garcia. He picked me up hitchhiking on the way to work, because I didn't have my car yet. So I'm just, I was in this crazy place. He picked me up hitchhiking. We hung out later on that week, and he showed me his work. So what he does, and he's Apache, he is half Apache. He does these airbrush paintings, gets photographs of Native women. I think presumably from like the 1800s, right about the time when when that was the final conquest of the tribe. Well, not final. There's yeah. Oh, God, gosh. Right at that time when natives were being forced into reservations and really conquered in the time of the conquest. I think those photos are all coming from right about that period. So he does these beautiful airbrushes of especially Native American women from those periods. And I just feel like he brought me over to his house, and I was looking at all these paintings, and I was just like, oh my gosh, you have brought them here into the room. And I connected so deeply with this girl that he let me borrow this painting. But at this point, I can't see letting her go. So I'm just working on manifesting abundance in my own life. And I want to give him a good chunk of change so I can keep rolling with her for the long term. But just really significant, it's like she's here in the room, and also a reminder of all the natives who are absent. It's like, here we are, like so much of the images that we have of natives is not actual real people, that changed for me greatly going out to New Mexico. And that, I realized that it had never even really bothered me that much. And that there was like, I knew people from everywhere in the world except for natives. And just really, been diving into the need to understand that deeper history. On my mother's side, I descend from the Mayflower. So I feel like I have a very, very, my tikkun olam, part of my particular work to heal the world, because we all have our beautiful gifts. Part of mine is I speak, bringing forth that consciousness in my work and in my life. Natives are not invisible to me, and the fact that you're on Neon is something that is of the utmost importance for us to understand. Thank
you, ASLIANI.
Thank you.
That's great. That's great. I want to go on with showing you something interesting. Here's what I got. I got 3 big, huge books, and I think in future times I'm going to feature these more, but not so much. They're all day books. This one is called Earth from Above, Jan Arthus Bertrand. And for today, these are all aerial photos of different places on the planet. And I wish I had PDFs of all of these and could just show them on your screen. This is Turkey Anatolia agricultural landscape between Ankara and Hattushash. The next one I have is the same idea, I think maybe the same publisher, but this is architecture, a year in architecture. And this is today's architectural exposition. It's Neue Stadtgalerie Stuttgart. It's from Germany, and the architect is named James Sterling. And then finally, this one, The Universe, 365 Days. And here it is. Here's today's offering, and I'll read to you what it is. By the way, I want to go out and see if I can see that comet tonight. This is called the Tarantula Zone. The Tarantula Nebula is more than 1,000 light years across, a giant emission nebula within our neighboring galaxy, the Large Magellanic Cloud. That's enough. It's like just kind of gives you a little piece of a notion of how tiny we are right here. 1,000 light years across, and that's just one. Finally, here's a reading from Eduardo Galeano, and this is called Children of the Days, and this is 365 readings, one for each day. Sometimes you get surprised by it and what it is. I haven't read this yet, so I will read it for you, and I hope no one is shocked or. So here's what it says. July 19th, the first tourist on Rio's beaches. Portuguese Prince Regent João, son of Queen Maria, visited the beach at the port of Rio de Janeiro on his doctor's advice in 1810. The monarch jumped into the water with his shoes on, wearing a barrel. He was terrified of crabs and waves. His audacious example did not catch on. The beaches of Rio were noxious garbage dumps where at night slaves deposited the waste of their masters. By the time the 20th century rolled around, the waters offered a much better swim. But take note, ladies and gentlemen were kept well apart as the rules of modesty required. One had to dress up to go to the beach. On shores that today are a geography of nudity, the he's went in covered to below the knees, and the pallid she's swaddled head to foot for fear the sun would turn them into mulatas. That is Eduardo Galeano's offering for today, the 19th of July. Matt Dumont, you have joined us so many times over the course of over 40 years, and we are so glad and honored that you are with us again today. Fran Resnowski, I just happened to note that over the years when Matt spoke here, you were always here. And then I came to know that he was your colleague in psychiatry and psychotherapy, and that you both worked in Chelsea together. And I was really glad to connect with you and to be able to have you introduce Matt Dumont. Ed Pazanis, you just, who is here with me at Community Church, you just told me a little bit about Fran that that I did not know. And so I'm going to have the introducer be introduced by Ed Pazanis. Oh, Ed doesn't want to do that. Ed just, okay. Fran, I want to give you the floor to introduce Matt Dumont to us. Fran Resnowski.
My name is Fran Resnowski, for those of you who do not know me, and I have the extreme pleasure of introducing Matt Dumont, who's today's speaker and a shining star for me, many people living in Chelsea, and I can only imagine the readers of Matt's books, The Absurd Healer, Perspectives of a Community Psychiatrist, Spirited Guide to Health in a Dying Empire, and Treating the Poor, a personal sojourn through the rise and fall of community mental health, as well as his followers from Mother Jones magazine, under which he used the pen name Dr. Hugh Drummond, and many, many others. Here in Chelsea, Matt was our radical community psychiatrist from 1975 to 1991, Dr. Matt Dumont. Matt was beloved in Chelsea And when he retired, we had a community party for him with close to 100 people. I was fortunate when Matt became my mentor around the neurotoxin lead paint in the early 1980s. At that time, I was a preschool teacher at Kangaroo's Pouch at Buche del Canguro, a bilingual childcare center for 50 children located directly below the lead paint covered Tobin Bridge, which spans from Chelsea to Boston. In 1983, the bridge was being de-leaded. The child care center's backyard was off limits because of de-leading equipment. I was angry when Massport Authority, the evil empire, who maintained and oversaw the de-leading of the bridge, handed out plastic covers for people's cars in the immediate neighborhood and told residents not to worry about lead paint poisoning in public meetings. It was evident to me that more concern was expressed for possible damage to vehicles than for the residents living below the bridge. At that time, children 6 years and under in Chelsea had the second highest rate of lead poisoning due to old substandard housing and the leaded Tobin Bridge. Matt was a scholar about the hazardous impact of lead paint on young children, as well as for the workers de-leading the bridge, and I became his protege. Matt's guidance was all I needed to mobilize parents of lead-poisoned children, neighbors, teachers, activists to form Chelsea Organized Against Lead Poisoning. Thanks to the jumpstart from Matt, we held neighborhood meetings to build awareness about lead paint poisoning, organized free childhood lead screening clinics, held community meetings with city, state officials, and the Environmental Protection Agency to express our concern and demands. We worked with state representatives to push for lead paint safety legislation, which passed, and we successfully pressured Massport Authority to fund a door-to-door childhood lead testing program for $20,000. I trust that you will leave today's service with a deeper understanding and new perspectives about Matt's topic, the new age of anxiety, because that's what he does. A shining star, one who illuminates. Matt, you're on.
Well, thank you, Fran. It was a little bit like a drowning man reviewing his life and work, and a nice job of condensing it all. Yes, lead was a major part of my life and work. And my arch enemy was the Massachusetts Port Authority, which insisted on spraying their lead paint onto the homes of people below. And that became an obsession of mine. I'm not sure that we were able to prevent too many kids from being poisoned, but we did our best.
Excuse me, Matt, can you move
Now,
a little bit closer to the microphone?
I have to tell you that reality has a funny way of overcoming imagination. And a bit of reality emerged very recently and very dramatically. Friday night in Portland, Oregon, when, as perhaps you know, a bunch of federal agents, masked and unrecognizable, in cars that were unidentified, resulted in a number of people being pulled from the protest line and being summarily, I guess you'd have to say, arrested, but they weren't read their rights. There were no rights. That event was a little upsetting to many of us because it seemed to be the kind of Trump-esque proto-fascism that he is capable of imposing on us. With, unmarked cars and just summarily being picked up. Let's hope that there isn't much more of that. And let's hope that we have not a hell of a lot more of Trump too. I have been working in the efforts of those of us who are not captivated by Trump to do my best in raising people's consciousness about how dangerous this guy is. Dangerous because he is so evidently stupid and clumsy that you wouldn't think that he could be in any way a menace, but he is. And we have to be very careful about how long we can tolerate his guffawing. And the fact of the matter is that he is going to be possibly heralding a sort of soft fascism that will destroy what we have left of democracy. So let's do our best to whatever we have to do to get rid of him, which I hope happens soon and definitively. But not too much more of that. I did, as Fran described, have a great deal to do with lead, and did my best to prevent as many kids as possible from being poisoned. People are being poisoned all the time, by the way, for all kinds of things, as I'm sure you know. I went on from lead poisoning to, what was it called? Sky Chef, a company that prepared meals for airplanes. And they were, of course, so preoccupied with making sure that when you pulled off your covering of whatever it was, I don't know, Buff Bourguignon in an airplane, you weren't going to be confronted with an insect. So they used so much pesticide that they were poisoning more and more people, including the workers in the company. So that got to be another obsession of mine. The chemistry that was used to destroy insects that were, for the most part, pretty innocent. Now, what's going on now for me is that I'm retired as a psychiatrist and don't particularly miss it. Psychiatry has changed, as I'm sure you're aware, from being a kind of talkative and thoughtful enterprise to being preoccupied with giving medicine to expunge people's symptoms. So when in the past we would talk to people who are depressed about what their depression was related to and connected to, and what their anxieties were related to and connected to. What happened is that we began prescribing medicine to expunge as much as possible of depression and as much as possible of anxiety. Anxiety is a very interesting thing because, well, it may be very painful to a lot of people, and anxiety attacks can be painful. It's also a warning about what is behind the anxiety. And as I've indicated, basically social, cultural, political forces at work that make us feel anxious are the ones that we should be addressing. Not so easy to do and not always very successful, but there it is. That's the job that we have to engage with. And as a psychiatrist, I increasingly spend time dealing with the social, cultural, political forces at work, and less with medication, which I never had much confidence in anyway. I don't know where to go with all of this. I'm very touched by this meeting with Community Church, which has been an important part of my life. I used to spend those Sundays anticipating the meeting with Community Church. And some people who became very important to me, including Sarah Sue and her son, and too many others for me to try to sum it up in my rotten memory. Listen, kids, some of you may have something to say, and I wish you would. And if you have any questions, I'll try my best to see if I can answer them. In the meantime, let me remind you that reality has a funny way of impinging on imagination. I think I said that, but I'll say it again. Because, as I'm sure you know, there was a real event in Portland, Oregon on Friday night that should capture our attention. At that time, there was a bunch of people summoned by Trump to arrest people who were protesting. And the arrests took place with undercover police agents, federal police agents, and with vehicles that were unidentified and obviously under the control of our president. He's a very bad guy. I don't know what we're going to do about him, if anything, but we shouldn't be patient with him. We shouldn't treat it like a buffoon, which indeed he is. He's also the kind of fascism that's going to emerge, which is, sugar-coated, really, or as they used to say, soft fascism. It's not so soft in the final analysis. It's got very hard edges, and it's terrifying. And he's terrifying. So listen, what do you want to say? What do you want to say to me? What do you want to say to each other? And what do you want to ask if you have any questions?
Matt, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. My memory is that your addresses were always brief and insightful, and that you opened the floor early on for questions and observations. And what I'd like to do is just, before we do that, just hear one more song from ASLIANI, and then we'll go into the question and answer open mic portion. But generally, what I will say is that this is the moment that we go like this. We have the offering during the musician's last song. I want to tell you that I am writing a check to Community Church of Boston for my usual customary amount every Sunday. And I would urge each and every one of you to do the same. And you can send it to CCB 565 Boylston Street, Boston 02116, and Charlie is going to put that address in the chat section of this Zoom format. we're pretty old-fashioned. We're kind of on the upper scale of the demographics, if you will. We are what in Mexico they call los grandes. That means they call the seniors the great ones, los grandes. I love that. I always love that. Only in Mexico can you find that. But we still use paper checks. You can also go to our website, communitychurchofboston.org, and there is a PayPal function where you can make a donation there as well. I want to tell you that we are in a pretty difficult moment financially because of the closure for 3 months of the restaurant downstairs. We are in negotiations with them about how to deal with that pandemic related loss. And this is an ongoing negotiation, but it means that we have lots of expenses there, and just keep that in mind while you write your check or consider your contribution to community church at some future date. Just remember that. And as I write my check, ASLIANI is going to join us for one last song from Joshua Tree National Park. ASLIANI, I will tell you that I envy your being there, although I'm sure it's pretty early. It's already getting kind of hot.
Yes,
Very
you're right about that.
And I will tell you a quick little story, and it will not elaborate past that, about me being in a RV in 1976 at Joshua Tree National Park with my buddy. We had just taken LSD.
All right.
And it was a wonderful moment for about a half an hour until my buddy started having a really bad trip, and it went downhill from there until he recovered, and we drove back to Pomona College where I was in attendance. And that is my memory of Joshua Tree. I hope I get back there someday soon to witness what I didn't know about then, which is this tree that's called the bristlecone pine that lives in Joshua Tree, that has been around since before Jesus was on this planet. It's the oldest tree there is, and it's an amazing, phenomenal thing. And I am really just envying your being there. And and with that, I thank you again for being with us and give you the floor. ASLIANI.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, yes, on the topic of heat, I'm going to do this song, and then my computer is really starting to overheat a little bit. So then I'm just going to have to dip out. I don't have AC currently, so just letting you guys know. Hey, thanks for showing up for your friend in that trip and being a pal. You know, I'm sure that made a big difference, and it could have been very different without your love, you know. So thanks for showing up. And Matt, just want to honor your years of service and the stand, all the work that you've done to take a stand to protect the people from poisons. I just want to really honor you from my heart. Very, very important work that you've done. And just the little that I got to know of you right now, I'm sure you planted many, many, many beautiful seeds in the lives of many, many people and helped many people over the course of your career. So I just want to honor you and thank you for your service. All right, this is my last song. I got this really dope homegirl these days, spiritual homegirl I'm learning more about all the time, who's helping me really bring in the new in my life and in my work and in the world. And she's a Hebrew woman. Her name's Mary Magdalene. This is what I got. Give y'all a dose. Oh, speaking of LSD, the name of the song is Dose. It's not directly about LSD though. But if you do come back to Joshua Tree, I do have the connect on that, just saying. All right. What to say about the destruction, how they eat in Mother Earth like a luncheon and munching on everything sacred and licking the plate. Give us a big old grin while they lying in our face. But this just in, we can command the miracles, says Mary Magdalene. We Phoenix children creating heaven on earth, releasing our shame and showing up for the work. Are you with me? Then good, let's ride. Children of Mother Earth and Father Sky, let's do the work we gotta do to deeply align and let what must wither and die, die. Oh no, it ain't no thing but an overhaul. We sick of playing small. These suits don't fit us at all. We shedding our skins now, baring our teeth, being made anew and seeing through new eyes. Ain't it sweet? I'ma hit 'em with a dose and speak of our need to get close to the most high. I'ma hit 'em with a dose. Speak of our need to get close to the most high. And so many so focused on marketing themselves, but too much can repel when abundance indwells. Yes, we gotta find the way to make our album sell in accordance with the spiritual wealth and with the new truth. We be writing the rules. We cooler than cool, but this ain't middle school. Nah, homie, it can't be about looking good. How can we do that and still keep it hood like we should? You see, I like it raw. Because of me, there is a tigress who must roar. Also an eagle who was born to soar. And a unicorn too, she can open up a door. They will not stop us with violence. Cause yes, we filling up the silence with soul sounds rich and warm. Been kept inside real long, but they knocking on the next level. You who ding dong, the dose and speak of our need to get close to the most high. I'ma hit him with the dose. Speak of our need to get close to the most high. We walk the line between the dark and the light. We came to Mother Earth right on time. Rainbow generation, where we at? They find in the old ways. They show us the mask. We walk the line. We walk the line. Take our demons down 1, 2 at a time. We are bit by the snake. We jump in the lake, seeking transformation, not escape. Es otra relación con el presente que requiere que le preguntemos a nuestra gente. Contamos con la ayuda de los antepasados, no importa si esclavos o quemados por paganos, lo que tenían en común es respeto por Madre Tierra, Papá Cielo y los elementos, y mucho más allá que eso, la manera de sentir la magia de este momento. With the dose and speak of our need to get close to the most high. I'ma hit him with the dose. Speak of our need to get close to the most high. All right, that's my last number for you guys. Baruch Hashem, may we all begin again. All Phoenix children, so beloved, so beloved, made in great love, and love's the ultimate reality. And much love to each and every one of y'all. All right.
ASLIANI.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Mil gracias por tu participación con nosotros en este día, domingo 19.
Oh, qué lindo hablas español, Dean. Pues muchas gracias por tenerme. Thank you so much for having me.
Otra vez muy pronto. We'll see you again very soon.
Okay, inshallah. B'ezrat Hashem, espero. Y'all have a beautiful, beautiful day. Much love from Joshua Tree.
Very inspiring intervention, as they say in Spanish, her participation, her intervention in our program here. It's been great. So we open the floor to Matt with questions. I want to take the opportunity to start the questions. Matt, I have a book here. This is a compilation that we have recently done. It starts in 1921, and it is a compilation of all the speakers at Community Church of Boston. I went through and found the first one I found is in 1971. That would be 49 years ago. And it is October 10th, 1971, Dr. Matthew P. Dumont, and the title is Our Drug Program, Methods and Programs for Drug Rehabilitation. So that was 49 years ago. And most likely at that time, we were meeting at New England Life Hall. if I'm not mistaken. I could find that out, but for sure. But that's 49 years, and so that speaks a lot to your participation here. I could also go through and count the number of times you've spoken here. I just wanted to just ask you to reminisce about community church in those early days. That was a whole different era 50 years ago. We had just had our 50th anniversary. Now we're having our 100th anniversary. And we were a much huger forum at that time, probably 300 or 400 people speaking at community church are coming to attend in a big auditorium. And before that, it was even more enormous. In the 50s, 2,500 people might come to hear W.E.B. Du Bois or Henry Wallace or Krishnamurti, that sort of thing. I just wanted to have you reminisce about what it was like about Donald Lothrop. Just give us a little bit of historical context for some of us who don't have that sort of a historical memory.
You have to understand that at the time, we were in a very bad political environment. McCarthy, Joseph McCarthy, a blowhard, not unlike Trump, but a vicious anti-communist. And of course, he used a wide swath of everything from liberals to Democrats at times, to include in that sort of proto-communist umbrella. And he ruined careers, he ruined some lives, and he was quite a picture. But we have very much the same now. One of the comments after my talk was that Trump is not the problem is the Democrats, and always have been the Democrats who went along with reactionaries and Republicans, and were quiet, silent at other times. And as everybody knows, silence is consent. And so that what seemed to be center-left Democrat was actually a kind of compliance with reaction. And that's still the case. I have no particular problem with Joe Biden, but he's not Barack Obama, and he's not a liberal. So be aware of that. This is not a vote for him, it's a vote against Trump. And from that point of view, is perfectly reasonable. So it's not unlike an event I participated in on May Day in 2001 in Paris, when my wife and I were two people in a 1 million-person march, which was not for anybody. It was against Le Pen, who had beaten out the socialists for the second place under Chirac, who was a center-right candidate. And the signs would say, a vote for Chirac is not a vote for Chirac, it's a vote against Le Pen. And we're dealing with the same kind of thing now. We're voting against Trump. And from that point of view, it's not unreasonable to vote for the Democrat, but that's not what we're doing. So carry on. What else do you want to know or ask about or reminisce about?
I guess I'll recognize Dave.
Yeah.
You've got to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me
Hang
now?
on, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Psychiatry traditionally has dealt with individuals and try to cure an individual. More recently, there's been some kind of group or even community involvement in particular cases like family therapy and so forth. But what I'm thinking of about the police in Portland and previously the police violence against against uh,
Blacks.
yeah, the protesters. Um, it seems that there are some alternatives that we need to deal with, and I would like to know what you think about alternatives to let's say just demonstrations in the street. For example, um, can the idea of cowardice be brought out? In other words, it seems to me that the police are cowards. They're heavily armed. They're heavily armored against people who are totally unarmed and unarmored. Uh, this is shameful in a moral sense, but I don't know how many police who are equipped that way feel ashamed of the difference. And so I'm thinking of, for example, one of the ancient ways of dealing with conflicts between armies is to have a champion from each side come out equally armed or unarmed as wrestlers and have an equal power contest. That would be one alternative. So and there are others where let's say there can be a forum, and you have both police and protesters in the forum, and the public is involved in question and answer and observation all along and so forth. Can you comment on the involvement of any of these alternatives?
Yes, I can, Dave. And I'll tell you what I think. Maybe I'm a little too bitter about this, but the police have always been the protectors of property and the protectors of those in power. So the assumption that there is some basic rationality or courage that we can appeal to and get some kind of discussion with the police going forgets the basic premise of what their existence is about. It's always been that way. It's always been their strong arm for the powers that be. And that's all that you need to keep in mind. Disarming the police is not going to happen because the powers that be need them to be the strong arm that they are. That may be more bitter than you want to hear, Dave, but that's my position on the police.
Well, just let me say that I'm having an interpersonal difficulty now with my own son, who took early retirement, who is a police officer at a university, a big university in the Midwest. I've always known him as the good cop, the one who is considerate of the rights of the public, and
Sure.
yeah, and I don't think he ever fired his gun except on a practice range, but he always carried a gun on duty, and was armored himself with a Kevlar jacket underneath and so forth. He had a to-do with the authorities that had more to do with politics within the security system of the university system, and he wound up with a lawyer, and he wound up being or let's say, resigning early before retirement time, but with a very considerable compensation package so that he can
Glad to
retire.
hear it.
Um, so he and I are not talking because he knows my politics and morality, and he declared himself a Republican, and went hours and moved with his wife to a retirement town, very far from his old university job. And you know, I would love to be able to communicate with him, but he doesn't seem to want to. So I know that there's difficulty in bringing up a moral issue, you know, like fairness in combat. But somehow I don't want to just resign myself to that kind of oppressive difference forever.
You have to have a recognition of fathers and sons, and against all political, moral, social, cultural issues that were being played out. You are a father, and he is your son, and it's a relationship that has extreme importance in the here and now and in the long run. So don't minimize that, and don't be concerned about any contradictions with the politics around the police. He's your son and will always be your son. I don't want to sound more gushy than necessary about that, but I have a son. I'm very proud of it, in fact. He works for the World Food Program, has to live in Rome, the poor thing. And he's doing important things, going to Africa with food to feed people who would starve otherwise. I'm very proud of him. Maybe he's listening to this, I don't know.
I wish I could.
Mike has a question. No, I'm sorry. We should probably let some other people talk now.
I just want to say one thing that I take. I want to extend what you just said. I would like to be able to encourage my son to do something like that, so humanistically pro-social.
Good luck.
I don't know how to do it, but you know, I'd love to do it.
Right.
I don't know.
Mike Heischman has a question.
Yes, hi everybody. Hi Matt.
Hi.
I want to talk about what seems to be unprecedented times that we live in. And I want to express my belief that these times are not so unprecedented. 100 years ago, we had a major flu. And we also had a president of the United States, Wilson, who was silent about it. It was a different time during communications and stuff, but the virus was worse in the United States because of government policy, stupid government policy. Wilson was, and the establishment was more interested in winning the war, World War I, and in the United States and around the world, as of now, that virus is worse than the coronavirus today. I mean, it's terrible, terrible. But my point is that we don't live in unprecedented times. As much as we condemn what's happening in Portland, which is very scary, let's not forget that under President Obama and his Department of Justice, with the cooperation of Democratic mayors, the Occupy movement was crushed, okay? And that happened mostly with Democrats. So I believe that you just can't vote against something and expect that things are gonna get better. No matter in terms of this millennium, no matter whether the president was a Democrat or a Republican, things have been getting worse, and things are going to continue to get worse. Now, Trump is probably the worst president in the history of our nation. That doesn't mean that the next president isn't going to be worse than him. You know, it's like, I'm horrified that Trump is president, but I'm grateful that Hillary wasn't elected, because God knows what she would have done, and God only knows what Biden's going to do. So I'm not expressing purity, but I'm in the Green Rainbow Party, and I want my vote to always be an expression of the world that I want to create. And I also want my vote to be an expression of the work that I do. So all year long, I support justice, I support peace, I support quality education, I support taking care of the environment, and I am not going to vote for Biden or anybody else who I believe is evil and cruel and practices policies that are genocidal and ecocidal.
Good for you.
Anybody else with a question?
I have one.
Dave Rold.
Okay, so thanks for letting me speak. So Dr. Dumont was my psychiatrist at one point, and Matt, you talked me into going to the Green Party National Convention in Milwaukee in 2004 to be a Ralph Nader delegate, and I chose you as my psychiatrist because you were against major party politics, and now you're telling us to vote for the Democrats. And I want to say that the repression against the pro-black anti-police protesters, that's only half of the repression going on. There's also the repression of this lockdown around the coronavirus crisis, like elements within the government created this coronavirus crisis, and they've used mass mind control. Can you guys still hear me? Everything's frozen. They've used mass mind control to get everybody to isolate and wear masks, and it's killing people. People aren't supposed to live like this, and they're already putting, in Arkansas, they're using the National Guard to put people who are accused of having COVID in camps, and they've had people under house arrest, and they're putting these contact tracing apps on our phones, and it's really serious political repression. We can't meet in person. They've taken away our right to assembly. And, the Democrats are totally in support of this stuff. And they're pretending to support the pro-black protests because they want to have a coup against Trump and get him out. And, because they somehow think that he was not imperialist enough. He removed some of the troops from Syria and Afghanistan and stuff. So I just really disagree with you today, Matt.
I'm going to vote for you, David. Good luck.
Thank you.
So Faye has a question from the chat. She's asking about what you think about defunding the police.
I think it's a good idea, but good luck again.
Anybody else with a question?
Oh, can I just say, I mean, part of defunding the police is investing in investing in social services. So it's investing in more psychiatrists and more mental health services, more substance abuse services, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm wondering about, because when people talk about defunding police, they don't talk about what they're going to be investing in. Yeah. So can you speak to that?
Yes, I think that's a very important observation, that other things are not being paid for, including social services and mental health care and all the rest. And the police are a sink of public funds. They are extremely expensive and devouring of whatever they get. They can't get enough. Defunding them would be interesting. I should point out, however, that the inner city community, the Black community, always say that what they need is more and better police protection. So don't assume that African Americans are all in favor of defunding the police.
Actually, I have a question. I know the 3 people I know that have had COVID are all from Chelsea, and it's obvious that the poverty and density of the city are factors about that. Do you have anything more to say? I know.
Oh, well, I was obsessed with the issues of poverty in Chelsea. And indeed, it's at the base of everything, including pollution and including powerlessness. Chelsea was a laboratory of social issues. And it was on that basis that I went there. And it was on that basis that I worked as a community psychiatrist. And would still be if I weren't laid off by a Democrat. Anybody? Ken?
Oh, Susan Mirsky, you got to unmute yourself.
All right. Good to hear you. And my husband, David, sends great regards to you, Matt. I hear what people are saying, and I'm so sorry that we came in late. But I do want to share something that my mother, who died when she was 100, said to me early on and stayed in my brain, which was, don't let the bastards get you down. And I don't know the derivation of that, but
It's Latin, actually.
Yeah?
Yes, illegitimate non carborundum.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But then that has so stayed in my being that in the midst of all these horrible things that are happening across the board in every area, like every day, you hear something more and more. It's still the sense of find out what you can do and act, work on legislation, work on electing people that are better than other. Here in Massachusetts, Markey rather than Kennedy. Here in CD4, we have Isan Leckie. But always as, was it, now I'm forgetting his name, would say, and he was our congressperson, Barney Frank, who said, wherever you go, whatever organization you are a part of, you say, yeah, it's hard to get that money. And what about the military budget? And work on the military budget, work on, in any way possible. So in terms of our psychological well-being, it's something that's helped me. And that's not really a question, but is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Just to provide some enthusiastic agreement with what you're describing. Thank you, Susan.
Could I chime in for a moment here? Susan, yes, kudos to your mention of Ihsaan Lecky, whose campaign I've just gotten interested in and involved in. And I'm especially interested in her for this, for the district where I live as well, because of her stance on Zionism, which neither Kennedy or Markey have a very good record about, especially Markey, who applauded when the embassy was moved to Jerusalem. I'll never get over that. And Ihsaan Lecky is my candidate right now, as far as I can tell. But I also wanted to bring up something that might be a little controversial. And that is that all of us have issues around language. We have one member of the church who can't stand when the word "you guys" is used for a room of people or a public of people who are both men and women. I've changed from "you guys" to "y'all" as a response to that. And she has a point. It's pretty much everywhere. I have an issue with the word anti-Semitism. Semites are people derived from the Near Eastern languages of Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic. Anti-Semitism is usually allied with or compared to anti-Jewish, you know, and so that's a little issue of mine that I haven't heard very much, and most even anti-Zionist Jewish people use the word anti-Semitic for anti-Jewish. So that's another one. But I want to mention the third one, and that's the word bastard. Bastard is usually used very negatively. I happen to know a boy who was born out of, you call it out of wedlock, you know, and his father and mother, his father is married. He was born out of wedlock to another woman. This boy is one of my son's best friends, and I remember him overhearing him with my son grappling with this: "I'm a bastard." This boy does not deserve to have that label on him. This boy, by no fault of his own, was born in that circumstance. And every time I hear the word bastard used negatively, I think of that boy, and I think of trying to get rid of another one, which illegitimate. I know a lot of young people in El Salvador who were born during the war, whose mother is the first one, the first surname on their birth certificate, and through no fault of their own, they are considered illegitimate because that's the practice when you don't know who the father is. You put the mother on first. So I just wanted to say that when I heard the word bastard, and it's just so common, and that's all. I just needed to get that out. And
but you know, Dean, I have to tell you something. I'm a Shakespeare fanatic, and the first act of King Lear is very much about that issue of bastards and illegitimate and all of that language that is so damning of a population of people who don't deserve to be treated that way. Thank you for your observation about that.
Charlie, thank you for letting me speak. Are there any other questions or observations? Charlie, you're the moderator, right?
Yes, I'm lax on the job here a little bit. Anybody else?
Hello?
Seeing none. Do we call
Oh,
it a
Ken.
day?
Yeah.
Oh, Fran?
Fran.
No, not me. Ken.
Ken.
Hi,
Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Yeah, I have two very different questions, and the speaker can respond any way he wants, which he'll do. The first one has to do with the political discussion. I always think back to Hitler Germany and the rise of Hitler and how that occurred politically. The Communist Party accused the Social Democrats of social fascism. And politics occurs along a spectrum. And generally, the politics in any particular country and the orientation of the government is across a spectrum. And the spectrum moves obviously from left to right, et cetera. So the question is, in terms of Biden and Trump, what they represent along that spectrum. And given that one of the two is going to be president, which will be the one that has better policies? Obviously, the policies are not going to be terrifically different, but what policies will be better for the country, both in the short term and in terms of an evolutionary process of the politics towards a better society? Some people will say they're both basically the same, and one must find a better choice. Now, if people in the third world were to have a choice, they might say Trump is better because he's nationalist, he's less of an interventionist, and will be bombed less. And obviously, Hillary was more interventionist. She was instrumental in the decimation of Libya. She wanted to put a no-fly zone in Syria. Trump is attempting to withdraw troops from various countries. On the other hand, we know Trump is a scourge in the US, and his domestic policies are for the rich, which is also for international. He's a mass murderer in terms of the COVID virus in the country. He's against any effort towards environmental global warming issues. I could go on and on about that. The discussion is touched on, if we bring it down to the nitty gritty, whether one would vote for Trump or Biden. I could never vote for Trump. The issue is whether one would vote for Biden. Obviously, in Massachusetts, it probably doesn't matter. But in general, I'm wondering what your view on that whole issue is. And if one doesn't vote for either Trump or Biden, what is the way forward in terms of creating better prospects for the future in terms of the national legislature and the presidency, moving towards a better evolutionary path? So that's one question. The other question, in terms of mental health in the United States, we had the era of institutionalization, where we had the great mental hospitals. Please excuse, had to step away briefly. I guess I should stop my questions if he can't answer. Just continue?
Go ahead, Ken. Yeah.
Okay. So we had the institutionalization period where we had these huge mental hospitals, which were snake pits, started out as a progressive movement in the late 1800s. But by the 50s and 60s, the situation was so bad that people moved to the community mental health model. And that turned out to be pretty bad. And people with severe mental illness were just turned out into the streets. And there weren't enough real programs for them, and they ended up in jail or in homeless shelters or sleeping on the street. And I was just wondering where Matt sees any progress towards a better system on that. Long question, but.
Well, it looks like Matt has stepped away for a moment.
Right,
And,
so that's okay. I've expressed myself.
appreciate those questions, Ken.
Anybody else could answer if they wanted to.
I will
I
say
just
that
want, I'll make one comment. I remember that period with the transition from the institutions to the streets. I always remember on TV, I saw at least 3 or 4 programs, none totally unrelated to each other, but all of them stories of people that had mental health issues who would do better deinstitutionalized. It was like a silent campaign across TV stations, across the major networks to support this sort of thing. And of course, they always implied that there'd be help, in the smaller institutions and people would receive treatment. That was the lie.
Yeah, and I think all that was done was to give them medication, more and more medication, and that was about it, if they could even see a doctor, which of course was just papering over the issue.
well, I will say on behalf of Matt that I've heard Matt rail against the mental institutions, especially the Lindemann Mental Health facility, which is right in the North End, both against the institution itself, especially against the architecture of that building. I don't know if any of you have ever been there. I've been there plenty of times in my line of work, and it's a oppressive place. Anyway, Matt, we just had a very eloquent couple of questions for you while you were away, but we won't get you to opine since you stepped away for a moment. Any other questions or observations for Matt before we call it a day?
Why doesn't Ken just summarize what he asked? Because I'd like to hear the answers to the questions.
Yeah. Sure, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just summarize. My first question had to do with, in a simple sense, Trump versus Biden. And I referenced Nazi Germany and the rise of Hitler to power, the Communist Party calling the Social Democrats social fascists, and the spectrum of political evolution that occurs, and the danger of, the potential danger of saying that a slight progressive is just as bad as a conservative, and the dynamic of moving towards the right that could possibly allow. On the other hand, Hillary Clinton and Biden, of course, are interventionists overseas, have brought us Libya. Hillary wanted to go into Syria, etc. So Trump, a nationalist, he's been trying to withdraw troops from various countries. And is voting for Biden a progressive step within the context of the spectrum dynamic of politics in the US? Obviously, Trump is a mass murderer in terms of the COVID virus, in terms of the environment, in terms of transferring wealth to the rich and the corporations, not that the Democratic Party isn't a neoliberal party at this point. Given all of that, what could people do who are really progressive to change the evolutionary political dynamic in this country? So that's one question. The second question is different, that there was the age of institutionalization in mental health that ran for about 100 years. Those big mental hospitals became snake pits. And there was the so-called community mental health movement, which was supposed to take people out of the hospitals and put them in better settings. But that turned out to be terrible, where people were just released into the streets. Many of them put on medication, many not, people wandering around the streets in shelters, etc. So I just wonder if you have a view of where that might be going, where that could go in terms of progressive system for those people. So I'm just throwing that out there for whatever response you care to make.
I was very much at the forefront of the community mental health movement. And it was not a matter of sending people out of the hospitals into the streets, needless to say. That did happen, but it happened because budget cutters, many of them Republicans, used community mental health as a kind of veneer over what they were really doing, which was simply turning their back on the mentally ill. I wound up working in a mental hospital, a state hospital, because I was laid off by a Democrat. And I was told by the retirement board, very nice people, by the way, and helpful. I was told by the retirement board that I had to be in a state position by my next birthday, or else I was going to lose a lot of money for the rest of my life and my family. So I did, and that meant working in Westboro State Hospital. And then I found, interestingly, that one gets hooked. These are places where there are patients and there are staff, and the staff have problems like the patients do. And there's a social system there that can be understood and worked with. And that's what I tried to do, and found myself really very, very absorbed with what it's like to be in a state hospital, and feeling that it got a bad rap. The fact that they closed the state hospitals was a net loss for mental health at every level. And I think it was a pity that that happened.
Thank you.
Dean?
Fran, did you have your hand up, or was that just a thumbs up? Can't unmute Fran. Oh,
Yeah, no.
There you go.
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody who has contributed here. This has been a cast of a bunch of people who joined us. And I want to just point out that we have several more programs scheduled, July and August. I want to tell you that next Sunday, well, even sooner, next Wednesday, July 22nd, on this very channel, if you will, is Omar and Cindy Suazo. Omar joins us from the Caribbean coast of Honduras. It will be an introduction to Garifuna culture. And his title is Preparing for COVID, 19 in Honduras. And I want to thank Charlie for bringing our attention to Omar and his wife, Cindy. There will be another speaker from Honduras whose name escapes me right now. That's next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Next Sunday, July 26th, which happens to be the anniversary of the Cuban Revolution, we will be joined by Reverend Alan McClendon from the First Baptist Church in Jamaica Plain. He's a new friend to Community Church, and he's a sweet gentleman who I am looking forward to hearing him speak. He will give us a little tour of his trip to Cuba with his church, a delegation that went this past winter. I look forward to hearing Alan speak. Alan McClendon, this next Sunday, July 26th. August, we have on August 16th, Seren Moodlier, who joins us as a member of the leadership of Encuentro Cinco. Encuentro Cinco is our new tenant at Community Church. We so welcome their presence with us here. They now have an office here, and their leaders are joining ranks with our leaders to move this ship of crazies along into the next century of our existence. Did I say that well, Charlie?
Yes.
But Seren has published a book that's called A People's Guide to Boston, which is a sort of a compilation of activism in the city of Boston. And we look forward to hearing from Seren on that 16th of August. We also have in August on the 23rd, Reverend Bill Alberts, who is our minister for about 10 years in the 80s, and he will join us. Bill Alberts in his many years of being on this planet is still a rabble rouser and a very prolific author on the platform that's called Counterpunch. I'm sure some of you know about Counterpunch. Bill publishes there regularly, and you can get links to his articles on our website, communitychurchofboston.org. So we have a bunch of things coming up. I want to tell you finally that we are going to open our fall proceedings at the end of September. Hopefully a lot of different events before then, but it will be a live concert streamed from Community Church of the Fulani Haynes Jazz Collaborative. This was going to be a concert in March, but had to be postponed. We are going to have it live from the auditorium in a socially distanced way for the ensemble, with an audience of no one but the videographer, broadcast to the planet from right here in the auditorium. We also have a September 13th meeting, annual meeting of the church. I'm not sure if we'll have it from the church, but maybe we'll have it from the church with a Zoom component to it for those members who do not want to join us live here at the church. We're still working out the details. That event is to happen either virtually or both virtually and physically on Sunday, September the 13th. So stay tuned for that as well. I want to just end the meeting with a personal joy of mine, which is that I don't know if you knew, but almost exactly a year ago, on July 24th, an enormous oak tree fell on our home in Brookline. We have been homeless in rented quarters for a good part of the past year. We are back in our house, and it's an incredible joy for us to be there. And I want to share with you a little bit of what's going on at our house now, which is a Carolina wren, which is in residence. Can you hear it?
No, you have to lift up your phone. There you go. No, you have to lift it up. We can't see. There you move it over. There you go.
It's mostly the audio. You can't see the wren, but you can hear her or him.
Okay.
I'll give you another one of her songs. It's this one.
Very sweet.
There's about 20 different songs that I've recorded of the same Carolina wren, and it's a beautiful thing. And I'm hoping that maybe Owen Kennedy, who's also a songwriter and also a dedicated ornithologist and bird nut, he writes a lot of songs about birds. I'm hoping he will join us on a Sunday as well. He now lives in Maine, and he can tell us all about that song. And he can tell us if that bird is saying, "Get the hell off my property," or if that bird is saying, "Come hither, baby, I want to get to know you better," or if that bird is just saying, "I'm a jazz man and I want to show off my chops." I don't know which one of those it is, but it's just a beautiful song to hear. And with that, I want to just say thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Matt Dumont, for being with us today, and Fran and ASLIANI. This is Community Church, and we are not just a building, we are a community. And I have the humble honor of being the administrator here and trying to keep the ball rolling for us as we figure out our future, and also ushering in the second century of this beautiful, amazing community, congregation, institution, ship of fools, ship of radical dreamers, all of those things, if you will. The sparrow sings his song of joy and flies with wondrous ease. Oh, would that I my gifts employ as do the least of these. That's a verse from a hymn that I sing to that Carolina wren that's singing his ass off in my backyard in Brookline. And with that, I want to say goodbye to everybody and thank you for joining us. And till we meet again, meeting at the building soon be over, all over this world. And we'll see you next time. Join us on another upcoming Sunday. Keep in touch to find out online. The emails will give you the link, or else call me at my phone number or call the church and we'll give you the information. Bye, everybody. I love you.